All right guys, today I'm gonna show you a technique I'm using to make stencils for when I airbrush my 3D printed lures. Your lure doesn't have to be 3D printed to use this technique. You just need to get your dimensions of your lure into Fusion or whatever CAD program you use, obviously, to use this technique. So let's jump into Fusion 360. So this is a Twitch bait that I've been working on. You've seen me work on various versions of this throughout this series. This one's all done and I already have some stencils made, but I want to show you how I go about it. And the first thing to do is kind of go back to the beginning. So you grab your timeline, move it back, and I usually like to go right after I did this loft, right? And so we have half of our body here, and that makes it easy. Now, if you went on after you did the loft and made a bunch of modifications to the body, you'll want to get your timeline to the point where you have half the body with kind of all of your modifications in it. And I'm talking about modifications to the overall shape, not, you know, adding eyeballs or even gills or anything like that. We're talking about the overall profile here. Okay, so what I want to do is simply go up here, click on that body, right click, copy, right click, and paste. And it's going to ask me if I want to move it. You can move it or not, really irrelevant to what we're doing. I usually leave it in the same spot because it makes some of the sizing and adjusting a lot easier. Actually, you know what? We'll leave it in the same spot. So I just hit enter. Now I have this flat tape Twitch #1 body. I'm gonna hide my original and I'm gonna rename this one to Stencil Base, whatever you want to call it, bro. It's up to you. All right, and now you can actually go all the way to the end of your timeline if you want. It's gonna do a bunch more calculations, even though you really didn't change anything. All right, there we go. So now we have our stencil base and I have my eyeball turned on. Let's turn that off. So the only thing I have turned on is my stencil base. Here it is, solid lure. Here's where the fun starts. So what you wanna do is you wanna shell this body to create kind of a wrap, if you will. So we're gonna click the shell command and we want the back side to be hollow. So we're gonna click this right here. I also want the front and back to be gone. So when you're clicking with the shell command, when you click on this, when you click on a face, you're basically telling Fusion like, I don't want that face to be there. And we're gonna make a shell around everything else. And we wanna make sure we are outside, and thickness, you know, you might have to play around with. I'm kind of at like 1.8 right now. And it really kind of depends on the resin you're using and how well it supports when you print it. And more importantly, I found if I made them too thin using the resin I'm using, which is Tech Fast, it will tend to warp when you dry it and cure it. And obviously we don't want warping. So the trade-off to making it too thick, obviously, is it's hard to get some of the finer details through with your airbrush. But for today, we're gonna go 1.8. That kind of works pretty well for me. You figure it out for you. All right, you can see we have a preview here. That looks pretty good. Click OK. All right, and if you want to take a quick look, we can turn back on our body and you can kind of see what we're doing here, right? So when we added those fillets later on after we made this copy, you can see I have a little gap there. That's good. I think you want a little bit of a gap. And actually I want a little bit more of a gap around the whole lure body. So let's turn off that body again. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna push back that inside face just a touch to give us a bit more room. And we're gonna use a command that I've kind of only recently discovered, but I've been using a whole ton, especially when you need clearance, and that is offset face. So we click that, click this interface, and if you pull it this way, obviously if you make it a positive number, it's going to shrink it. We wanna make it a negative number. And you know, we just do -0.2. These are millimeters, by the way. And just kind of peel it back just a hair. Okay, so now if we take a look at it again, you see we have just a slight gap around. You can make it airtight if you want to, but you know, when you clamp this thing, when you put this thing against the lure body, if it's kind of airtight and you have any paint on there, you know, you're gonna possibly scrape some of that off, scratch it up. We don't want that. And again, depending on your resin you're using, you might need to actually make this gap bigger. So you just wanna experiment with this. All right, good to go. Turn off that body again. Now what we want to do is we want to come on the back side here and make our handles, or like where you're going to clip it together. And that is pretty straightforward. We're just going to create a sketch. I'm going to choose this edge right here. I could choose the plane. Choosing the edge makes it a little bit easier because you already will have the outline of the lure body as part of your sketch, and you won't have to do a project. And I keep these really simple. I just do a 2-point rectangle. I come to the lowest point here, draw it up. Size is totally up to you, man. There. Come over here, and again, you want to start your rectangle on the lowest point because we're going to go straight across when we make this rectangle. Make that the same size there. Just drawing some rectangles, bro. You can line them up if you want. It's all good. All right, now I hit the escape key, and I don't want, obviously, these guys in here. So what I want to do is use the trim command, which is a super useful command to get to know. And when you click trim, you can come in here, you can see I'll zoom in here. By default, it kind of knows that this intersection is here and obviously this end of the line is here, and you probably don't want that. So we just take all of those away. It's gonna give you a warning about constraints, but you know, for these guys, I don't really worry about fully defined sketches. Not really necessary for what we're doing here. If you want to get like super anal about it, you know, you can fully define them. You do you. These are not really impacted by any changes we're going to make. And by the time you're doing this, you want to have a absolutely nailed in lure body design. Like, we shouldn't be making any more changes to this particular version of this lure by the time we're making a stencil. All right, that looks good there. Oops, this one went crazy over here. Maybe I did need some constraints, bro. So if you get something that goes wonky like this and you can't move this, sometimes there's a dimension there. I want to delete that projection, obviously. Actually want to delete that point. All right. Now I can bring this in here. I have no idea what I did to mess this up. Whoa, look at that craziness, bro. That was wild, man. Oh, I deleted the projection. Didn't like that. All right, let's see. I like leaving these things in because, you know, if it can happen to me, it can happen to you, and you might need to adjust as you go. All right, so the better idea was just to grab that deal. So actually constraining that stuff properly and like, you know, would have helped a bunch there. Yeah, okay. Okay, so now we have the rectangles done, and what I like to do is put in some circles just to give us some relief cuts. This is probably not necessary, but saves a tiny bit of resin. And if you wanted to like pin these things together, like with some wire through it or something, I don't know, man, you can do that as well. So I just hit Control C and Control V there, by the way. I just copy this sketch. Control V again. I'm just kind of moving this around. Again, not even worried where this is going. Probably bite me in the butt later. All right, I'm gonna make this one just a touch longer. Move this one just a bit over. Okay, now we finish sketch. Hit E for extrude. Click that, make sure you're clicking this bottom one here. Don't click in the circle because we don't want that, obviously. And since we drew on this plane to go this way, we're gonna go negative. And again, I'm just gonna do 2 millimeters and we just go ahead and join this together and then you have your tabs. Brilliant. All right, and last thing we're gonna do to this part is I'm gonna come in here. I'm gonna add a fillet. So I hit the F key for fillet and let's see what a 1 looks like. That looks pretty good. Again, it gives me a little bit of relief on the edge here for when I clamp it against the lure. Okay, hit enter there. Oops, hang on. Let me show you a trick on fillet here. We're gonna go back and edit that feature. One thing I always forget with fillet is once you have the fillet open, you can fillet multiple edges in one command. And it's usually better to do it this way than to do a fillet command for each fillet, but really it's kind of a choice. I've just been doing this lately. So you hit that plus button and we can come and let's do this outside edge as well. All right, and let's see if we do a 1 on that. Maybe it's thinking really hard, bro. Usually if it thinks this hard, it's gonna fail. Oh, did it work? No, didn't work. Let's see. How about this nice little 0.5? Can I do that, Jim? Can I do that? Thank you. All right, 0.5 is done there. Then we click the add button. We'll add fillets to these guys. So a handy rule of thumb as well is if you know how thick something is, right? So I know that these are 2 millimeters thick, I remember, because I'm smart. You should, in theory, in like mathematical world, you should be able to make this a 1 and it should crunch it all the way down. Fusion generally doesn't, of course it doesn't now, right? So 1 on each side, we're good there. I'm just gonna go fillet crazy. I'm gonna fillet these edges here. And you don't, with the fillet command, you do not have to hold down the shift key. Just whatever you click on will get added to your selection set. If you want to remove one, you just click on it again, right? So if I don't want that one, I just click on it again. So I got all those selected and well, let's do a 0.8 fillet, see if it likes that. Doesn't like that. Oh, it did like that. All right. Oh, I remember another one. Let's get this edge here. Let's try 0.8. I didn't try 0.1 there because it's got that curve in it. Probably doesn't like that, so I'm just guessing. All right, all of our edges are filleted. So we really just fillet those edges to make sure it's nice and separated on the edges there. Saves a tiny bit of resin, and you'll see when we go to print this, we're gonna print these edges flat to the build plate, and it'll give us a nice kind of lip to get underneath there as well. Plus, it just looks cool, bro. All right, So now we are pretty much done with the base stencil. So what I like to do at this point is make a copy. Again, come over here, copy, right click again, and paste. The reason I do that is we now have a stencil that is set up correctly, but obviously it's not a stencil because we haven't put any holes in it. So each time I want to do a different version of this stencil with different patterns in it, I can come in and I can make a copy of that stencil base and draw whatever patterns I want on there and go from there, right? I don't have to kind of back up what I changed on one stencil and go to the other. And I can build up a library of stencils for an individual lure. Okay, so now we got our stencil base 1. We turn off our original stencil base and we're gonna make a kind of simple circle one here. Big circles maybe. Oh wait, I forgot to do something. Let's go back before we made this copy. Time traveling is great, Jimmy. And look at our stencil base. So one thing I want to show you here is with this twitch bait, we actually have this eyeball that sticks out, right? Now, if you have a lure that does not have any sticky out bits, right? The original body is completely flat, nothing is sticking out really far, then you probably don't need to do this step. But to make sure our stencil is going to fit correctly, we want to do this one last step. So I'm going to turn back on the base and you can see my eyeball is sticking out here, right? So it's sticking out. I could get some overspray on that. I'm not a good airbrusher, but I think I can avoid that area. Worst case, I can throw some blue tape on it. If you want, you can always make this body thicker. We made it 2 millimeters. You can make it 3. You could just blow it out till it goes over this. I'm just gonna leave it like that. But what we wanna do is we wanna make sure that we have a relief cut in here. So we're gonna use the combine tool and I'm gonna make sure my stencil base is the target and my tool bodies are the flat tape twitch and more importantly, the twitch eyeball. And I probably don't need the actual twitch body. In fact, let's take that off of there because it's not touching. We just need the eyeball. We're going to cut and we're going to keep tools because we want to keep our eyeball around. Click OK. All right, so now if we turn off our eyeball, turn off our body, now we got a nice little hole for our eye. So when we come in, put it on the lure, it's going to fit right over the eyeball there. Okay, now we're ready. So since I moved back my timeline, if I move my timeline forward, boom, it makes a copy of this one now, same thing. Okay, so now we're gonna add our details to our stencil. So make sure we turn off our stencil base. We don't wanna impact that at all. Just turn it off like that. And the only thing we should have selected is this stencil base, the copy. I've already renamed it big circles because I'm making big circles, bro. All right, so we're gonna make a sketch on this plane back here. And I want to do a project and we're gonna select this geometry and click OK. That way we can turn off my body and I have an outline of what's going on, right? I can even see my little eyeball. Super sweet, bro. Now, let's see, I wanna kind of make an arc of circles. I think that's what I want to do. And let's see, I'm going to start it low. I'm just going to pick this point at random. We're making art here, people. It's cool. Click it on that end, click the checkbox, hit the escape key, and just bend this kind of where I'm thinking I want to go. That sounds good. And at any time, you can kind of turn this back on and kind of see where we're going. That looks pretty good. I'm not going to put anything in the front. I'm going to start them here and just kind of follow down this line. All right. Now you can do any shapes you want. You can get crazy in here. You can do all kinds of nutty stuff, but the technique is the same. You just basically are just gonna draw out what shapes you want to cut out of your stencil. I'm just making these slightly smaller as I go along. Again, not really getting too crazy. You can get as crazy as you want to get. I'm not worried about spacing yet either. Let's put one more on here. All right, 3. All right, now we can just do distance. I hit the D key. We're gonna dimension these here to here. So say 11. And again, I'm just kind of making this up as I go along. Just decrementing the space by 1. Again, probably putting this into a parameter. If you knew what you were doing ahead of time, would be a good idea. Because then I make this whole thing a lot easier. All right, and I also noticed I got a few that are not on lines here, so make sure we snap these down just to make sure I got my arc in place. So that way, if I wanted to actually change this, I can come in here and move this whole fit point spline and my whole pattern moves. That's why I want to make sure they're locked on there. All right, let's see. Let's put my stencil back on, big circles. Looks good. All right, now it's pretty simple. We want to hit E for extrude. I want to make sure we select all of our circles here. Again, since we have that fit point spline, they're going to be cut in half, so make sure you're selecting both halves. Turn on your stencil big circle. For extent type, if we just do all, it'll pop out all the way to the end there. Click OK, and boom, you got a holy stencil, bro. Now we can come through here and add some fillets if we want. Oh, let me show you a cool trick I just learned. Rule fillets. So if you hit fillet and change the type to rule fillet, it's gonna ask you to select faces or features. If we select our extrude, and let's make these 1 millimeters again. Oops, actually I could click the box, bro. Let's make these small, let's make them 0.5. Then it just adds fillets to all of these circles because we just made them. That's pretty cool, huh? I like it a lot. So I learned that rule fillet command from Fusion 360 School. He's the same guy that helped me with the lure scales a while back. He's always making really cool videos to solve very specific problems that I learn a ton from. So go check him out. I'll leave a link to his channel in the description below. All right, we just click on OK and boom, we got fillets for all of our circles. And you know what? I'm just gonna call this one done. Again, you can come in and make whatever circles, lines, anything you want in here all day long. I would say that you probably need to pay attention to how small you make those. You'll see when we print them out, if you make it too small, it ends up getting pretty difficult to get some paint through there. Again, you can kind of play around with it, but we're keeping them big today. So I didn't mirror this in Fusion 360. I'm gonna just go ahead and mirror it when I put it in a Chitubox. It has a mirror command, works just as well. No need to kind of gump up the Fusion project with a bunch of mirrored copies when I can just mirror it when I go to print it. So again, just save as mesh, make sure it's on STL, make sure it's on millimeter, by the way, if you're 3D printing, and click OK. We're just gonna save this, flat twitch, tweech. Kind of want to name these. If you're like me, you end up with like a giant directory of all kinds of STL files. So the better you name them, the easier it'll be on you. Click save and boom. All right, now we're gonna quit Fusion 360 and go into Chitubox. All right, I'm on my ABS green resin and let's bring in my STL file I just made. Drop it in there, boom. All right, we're gonna rotate, flatten by face and choose this face. Putting it flat on the build plate, bro. Just click mirror and we want a X mirror. Yes. Oh, we want to keep original model. And we want an X mirror. Okay, there we go, boom. That was more difficult than it needed to be. Okay, and then we're just gonna move these. Gonna move this one. Again, as I've said in my previous videos, I try to stay out of the center. That is where your FEP is the loosest on your resin 3D printer. And we are good to go. So this should print fine with no supports. I generally don't have a problem as long as it is relatively thick, right? 2 millimeters seems to be the magic for me and my resin. And the bonus, it is really fast to print. So if I slice this, should be about an hour maybe. 43 minutes is the estimate, so that's great. Now, I'm gonna show you this real quick. In case you have problems printing it flat to the build plate, you can print it relatively vertical, and I'll walk you through that real quick. So the important thing on a stencil to remember that at least I got confused with or didn't realize when I first started is this outside surface here. It can be absolute garbage, really doesn't matter. You know, obviously as long as you have the holes through there, the inside surface is what you want to make sure is clean. So you can take this, you can rotate and probably bring it up all the way over. You want to flip it to where this side is facing the build plate and we can put all our supports there. Okay, and then you can go in and support all you want all day long in there. But again, you'll notice this is going to be a little bit tricky, right? If we go into the supports, let's raise it up 5 millimeters. I got a bunch of little points to deal with and it's a real pain in the butt, right? You can do it if you have problems, maybe you want to, but really print it flat if at all possible. All right, slap this back on the build plate. All right, click slice. 43 minutes, roughly 53 cents. I think I have my cost in there correctly. And click save. And just save it to wherever you want to go. Luckily I have a USB stick because I gotta walk downstairs to throw it in the printer. All right, we're gonna go print this and then go do a little painting. All right, guys, we are on the bench and I'm gonna keep this one super simple because you don't need to see me airbrushing to know what airbrushing is about. Go watch some real pros like Jekyll Bates, something like that if you want to see some cool airbrushing. We're gonna keep it simple. I've got some clear coat on this bad boy, just the enamel clear like I showed you in the last video. And I got some detail black magenta and we're just gonna throw on our stencil. Just gonna throw it on the front and the back. Let's see how it kind of fits on there, nice and easy. And I got some obscenely large alligator clips here. No, these aren't alligator clips. These are these dog ear clips, something along those lines. Something like that. All right, so a note for you, so you don't make the same kind of foobar I did. Note where the screw eye is here, and this guy, it's kind of preventing me from getting a super solid closure here. But hey, it's not too bad, bro. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna put this guy on top, and on the bottom here, we can probably make use of our helping hands. Kind of squeeze in the bottom. Look at that, bro. Like I knew what I was doing, man. Holy smokes. All right, that looks pretty good. And so I'm gonna leave the lure, you know, the color of the resin, basically, this bright green. Actually, since it's UV resin, it kind of fluoresces in the sun, so I think it's gonna be a cool look. And I'm just gonna put black spots on it and then hit it with some final clear coat, like a thick clear coat. And that's gonna be it, bro. We're gonna fish it tomorrow, hopefully. All right, I think we're ready to go. All right, you see that mess? That's me not doing a very good job. Should have cleaned my lure first. See down here, this little guy. He's okay, but it gets kind of hard to put it in there. I'm just blowing it with some air right now, try to get it a little dry. This guy again. All right, let's see if I screwed up on this side too. That's why I'm not really good at airbrushing, because I don't pay good attention to my prep. Probably fanned it out a bit too much too, I'm guessing. All right, guys, we're gonna let that sit for a while, make sure it's dry, and then I'll pop it off and show you the results. So I figured out what my problem is. Well, I think I know what my problem is. Comment below if you think I'm correct. I used an enamel-based clear coat, and I'm spraying water-based acrylic paint. I don't think that's the best move, and that's why I'm not getting good adhesion from my clear coat to my airbrush paint. So probably need to find some acrylic clear coat. Comment below if you think that's it, because I need all the help I can get when it comes to airbrushing. But let's see what my constant blasting of detail magenta black did through this stencil. All right, man, I think that looks pretty good. You know, there's a little bit of a halo on there, but that could easily be from me just like blasting the utter crap out of it, because it wasn't sticking. So I decided, you know, hey, if it's not sticking, just shoot more in there. You can see I got some overflow right there, but I'm pretty sure that's going to be chalked up to my poor execution there, and my enamel clear coat and my acrylic top coat probably not going well together. If it stuck on there, you know, right away, I wouldn't have felt the need to kind of keep pounding it on there. But hey, that'll fish for sure. And I am off to find a better, easier, just maybe acrylic clear coat that I can put on to seal the lure before I put on paint. If you know one, leave a comment. All right, guys, lesson learned on mixing clear coats and top coats of different types of paint. Not good, but I think overall the stencil turned out pretty well given my complete lack of ability and the problems I had. I hope it gives you some great ideas for really cool stencils for your 3D prints. And again, you can do this on any lure. Just get those dimensions, build the body in Fusion 360, and follow the steps. All right, guys, next up, we're gonna make it even easier with stickers. Take care, tight lines.